Right then, guys, this is quite possibly the best interview I've ever done, I think, in terms of insight, in terms of hearing about things that you didn't know about. And that's due massively, totally, down to my guest, Guillem Balague, who is a La Liga TV expert. If you're not aware of La Liga TV and you want to watch La Liga, there's a link in the description. Make sure you check it out. It's the Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid derby. A great game to go and watch. And when we're talking about foreign leagues, the most popular one is La Liga. And Guillem Balague is an expert for La Liga TV. So with the Champions League spots still being hotly contested, make sure you go and check them out. Link is in the description. Go check out La Liga TV and enjoy what is an amazing interview. We talk about Mauricio Pochettino, Lionel Messi. He's done biographies on both. Arteta, Rafa Benitez, and Fernando Torres calling him a terrorist. Enjoy. Dream Teams is back, and this is a fantastic one. If you love the game of football, you are going to love the next hour where we talk about a fantastic team with some names that you won't know, some names that you certainly will know, and then a couple of exclusions that I'm going to have to talk about. Guillem Balague joins me right now to go through his Dream Team. And first of all, can I just say, because I'm setting up the tease.
Remember.
You just remember. Don't say it. That's my tease. That's what keeps them. That's
remembered. Oh my God. Interesting that I didn't think of it. Well, I think we were thinking of the same thing.
Yes, I presume so. I mean, but there's some belters in there. Oh wow, what a reaction from you. That's fantastic. Guys, if you haven't checked out Dream Teams before, then make sure you do. We've got so many great guests. Lothar Matthäus, Emmanuel Petit, Ben Foster, lots of great names. And actually, I was chatting to Lothar Matthäus. I know you've done a biography on Maradona, is that right?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Lothar Matthäus was chatting about him. That was a weird hour. I never thought I'd meet Lothar Matthäus, and I'm sure you've had those moments in your career, which has been an unbelievable career, and that's why some of these names are players that people won't know. But I think there's
one of them absent.
One of them absent, yeah, which we'll talk about. I'll talk about that at the end. But I think I'll know why, because the reason I created this series, Guillem, was because I think the players that you like say a lot about your love of the game a lot of the time. And so there's always names when I get the name. That's my favourite bit. When I get the team, I'm like, oh, why him? Why not him? And all of that. And there's often little themes and threads that kind of say stuff about yourself. And I've obviously been a huge fan of yours, and you've had such a fantastic career that you know so much that the world probably doesn't know through the relationships you've had and being so close to so many of these people that, just really excited to chat to you. Let's dive into this then. Starting with your goalkeeper, which will be a player that I wasn't aware of. But actually, I guess the first thing to say to sort of fill in is, who do you support? Because I think that plays a big part in this, and some people might not be aware of that.
I think we have to say two things. Who do I support at my age? Because my age will be exposed very clearly. And I'm 53. That's the first thing to say. It goes straight into the goalkeeper too. And I'm an Espanyol fan. I always add a line. I have been adding a line since 2014. But there is nothing that matters to me more than Biggles United. The club I'm chairman of. Yes. And it's not a cheap line. It really means much more now. So I love Espanyol, and I've been, in the two UEFA Cup finals. The first one of which in 1988, I fell out of love with football because it was all handed over to us. It was a two-legged affair against Bayer Leverkusen, having beaten Inter Milan, the AC Milan, the big AC Milan of Gullin, Basten, etc. And then it was 3-0 in the first leg to us at home. We went to Leverkusen, and basically the fans were saying, we're not even fans of the club. They just give us, they hand over the factory, the Bayer factory, gives us season tickets, but we're not even fans of the club. So, right, a club with no fans that lost 3-0, with a club that never won anything, not for 60 years anyway, nothing in Europe. It was our UEFA Cup final. It was our trophy. And it was 3-0 after 90 minutes against us, with our manager having left out of the squad our two best players. Never explained why. And then we lost at penalties. So that I thought, never again going to feel like this in football, ever. Took me 4 or 5 years to come back into football, but anyway, so that shows you the age and shows you a goalkeeper was Tommy Nkono.
Yeah, so a goalkeeper who was with Espanyol for a long time. Cameroon international as well. And I did look at some of his clips. He made some unbelievable saves in a time where goalkeepers caught the ball before people started to sort of just pump it away. And I thought he was an interesting choice for you. Why did you choose him?
First thing, I was a goalkeeper as a kid, and I always wore long trousers like he did.
Yeah.
The reason why he wore, I asked him after, not so long ago, and he told me that obviously when he was back in Cameroon, he will play in. Did you call them? Not mud. How do you call it? It's not grass.
So AstroTurf.
Soil.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Soil.
Yeah.
Soil. And of course that hurt his knee, so he started to wear long trousers. But he made it really, really cool. He appeared into the scene in the World Cup in '82 in a group in which nobody expected Cameroon to go through. Italy was in that group, and Cameroon managed to draw the 3 games, but still get knocked out. And he was fantastic. He was a personality. I know why you're doing this, and it certainly has opened my mind about all those things that you mentioned. You choose a player not just because he made a good save or won you a game, but because of, in this case, his personality. He was different to what the other goalkeepers were, in that he was comfortably coming out with the ball outside the box if need be. Nobody did that those days, but he could play with the ball. And he was very agile and had it was a great player to buy the shirt of if you are a goalkeeper as well. So yeah. I got to know him after, and he's a legend of the club, still at Espanyol as a goalkeeper coach, and a great person as well.
Yeah. And when you're younger, I think sometimes people catch your eye a little bit. When I was looking at the finals and the great teams, what's different from back then to now is that when you look at the countries that these players come from, and there's another player in your team, that was one of the few foreign players in your team. And so when someone maybe looks a little bit different or comes from a different country, they can kind of stay in your mind that little bit more, and you can have a different kind of affection for them. Did that play any part in this with Canito? I'm
convinced, unconsciously perhaps, but I'm convinced. And the being different, the look, the long trousers and the being different to every other goalkeeper out there made a difference for me as well, because I've always had a thing about, you don't have to conform to norm. You don't have to be like everybody else. And I understand that as a kid you tend to, but when you start being an adult, just be yourself. What's the fear? What's the worst that could happen? So with Tommy and Connor, we had that straight away. And also how he behaved off the pitch. He was so calm, you won't believe, as cool as cucumber. The guy, there's nothing affected him, and that also was a sign of maturity that I admire. Yeah. as a kid of somebody that always knew how to represent the club and represented him well too. Things that I appreciate in people. Just you have to. When you wear a badge, when you wear a shirt, be it Espanyol or Eagles or United, you're not just a player, and you're not there just for yourself. You represent some value, some way of being, even, and it's important that you behave on the pitch. You always did.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I was really excited to talk to you. So I'm a QPR fan, and but my channel obviously talks about Premier League, Champions League, huge clubs like yourself. I mean, you have to kind of retain this little piece of you whilst also getting on with it and talking about Barcelona a lot, talking about Real Madrid and those other teams. But those players don't lose any value. The players that, and you talk about Biggleswade as well. It's another great example. That kind of explains to me now a little bit why you would get involved with someone like Biggleswade, because you don't need to do that, do you? But you obviously you see the value in the smaller club sometimes.
The story of how I got involved was the right timing for many things. I got my UEFA coaching badges, so I'm UEFA B coach, and I wanted to buy a club in Spain, and I got Mendieta involved and some other people. Decided not to, and the whole world collapsed. This was about 2006, 7, 8, something like that. But I still thought, I'm listening to people so much talk about how they do things. I think I will get more right answers than wrong if I was asked those same questions. But you're right in that when the opportunity came to me, and the chairman of Biggleswade United at the time said, "We hear you talk about football. You think you know, prove it." It was, number one, a challenge, and number two, it is all those things. Can we create an identity in a football club? Can we just get 200, 300 people pushing it in the same direction that I imagine? Can we do it together? And what do you get out of it? And to be honest, started in October 2014. I mean, I get so much more back than I put in. And I tell you, I put more hours in that than anything else really I do. Well. But I get so much more. I mean, what happened this weekend, I don't know if you follow it, we very quickly, but we were moved leagues by the FA at the beginning of the season. We appealed.
Oh, I see.
And geographically meant from being like playing North London to going to Coventry and Leicester, which meant that we lost every single player, apart from one. George Harlow stayed with us. Everybody else went. And that meant starting the season with no squad. And then having to rebuild as the season progressed. We lost 18 games in a row. 18 games in a row in a league of, it ended up being 22 teams. Finally, it was 21. And kept faith at that moment. We renewed the manager because I thought Christian Colas was doing such a great job. We weren't helping him. Anyway, we left it all to the last game of the season. That was last Saturday. And we had to win. And basically, we did win.
Did it? Wow.
We did win. So we save. We in step 5. We stay on. Having been the 2 previous years top of the table, but stopped by COVID in the other league, in this one, we made ourselves, we made it very, very hard. But you know what? Out of that moment or season of despair, of difficulties, we're stronger than ever. Our girls, the women's sides are doing really well in the Conti Cup final this Wednesday. And as a club, as a unity, we're the strongest we've ever been.
Amazing.
And yet again, in a difficult season, where we put a lot of effort, we all got much more back.
Yeah,
we love each other now so much. Having gone through despair.
That's it as well. You know, when you go through those tough times as a football fan or as an owner, it's so much more potent when you get some form of joy out of it, and that's an incredible story for you. The other thing I was wondering with that is because I find it myself I talk about tactics a lot, and some people say, oh, would you want to coach or would you want to do things like that? I'm starting to get that feeling myself where you're talking about something so much, you want to have that authenticity. Was that part of it as well, where you wanted to be able to not just sort of talk about it and speculate, but actually understand how it all works?
You're absolutely right. Yeah, a big part of that, because I knew I couldn't coach. I was invited to coach by Hitchin Town, step 3 side, but I didn't have the time. I'm always traveling. And yet there was that knowledge. There was that, on one hand, there was that knowledge, and there was that want to see if that knowledge can be converted into reality. And as I first came in at Beagles United, there were 2 teams. Now we've got 4 senior sides, men's, women's. We've got an academy. And yeah, the answer is yes. We still get it wrong, but most of the time we've been progressing. That's great. And is the confirmation that all those things, and I'm talking to you now, that you're hearing and all that feeling that you've got is a great combination to actually apply it into a football club. And believe me, there are many like I was willing to open the doors to somebody like you who's got the contacts, who's got the knowledge, who's got the energy, who want to put all that together. So go and do it.
Okay,
Not
right,
now, but
noted. Yeah. Well, busy right now. I'm chatting to you. Right, let's carry on with the team then. So we've got a 4-4-2, but it will. I don't know if you had time to sort of focus on the tactics, and I don't think that's important. It's about the players themselves. Let's go with is this your right back then? Because I know he obviously has played centre back, but is this your right back in your team? Would you say your next pick?
Yes, I was talking Sergio Ramos.
That's right. Yep.
Sergio Ramos. Yeah. Obviously, as a fan, you want your teams to win, and as an Espanyol fan, I didn't get many chances of that happening. But I always felt very identified with the Spanish national side because my mother's from the south of Spain, my dad is from Catalonia. When you have got this mixture of people from different parts of the world, people had half left home and made home somewhere else, your world becomes very big. And for me, I feel first from my district, but at the same time from Barcelona, from Catalonia, from Spain. I feel very Spanish. I feel very, very Catalan. And when Spain plays, I feel emotionally attached to it. And of course, we went through a little bit like Beagles, right? We went through many years of nothing. And then there was a moment in which everything changed. And we like to pick moments and define history through moments. Of course, there was much more. But there was one particular moment, and it was we were playing in the qualifiers of the 2008 European Championships. We were playing Denmark away, and we had to win. and we had a lot of players injured. So 3 players from Espanyol actually made that squad and were very important for that game. But the right back of that team was Sergio Ramos. And I think it was a move of about 27, 28 passes. The manager was Luis Aragonés, a legend whose pass was tainted by one thing that happened. Tainted, I would say, in England, not so much in Spain.
Yeah.
He made a huge mistake on that Reyes incident, but he was much more than that as well. That doesn't define him. In any case, 27, 28 passes that finished with Sergio Ramos inside the box, lobbing the goalkeeper and scoring for Spain. We won that game, qualified for the European Championships, and the rest is history, of course, because we won 3 consecutive tournaments. So I always have to be thankful for Sergio Ramos for that, and then for what happened after too, because he was involved in the 3 tournaments too.
Of course. Sergio Ramos, I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of Sergio Ramos. And so that when you picked him, I was thinking, and no doubt he's obviously unbelievable as a footballer, unbelievable as a leader in terms of stepping up and getting the job done. But
I'm not hearing the bit that you don't like. Unbelievable leader, great player, one of the best centre-backs in the world. Yes,
But I think in this country, bit of a troll, bit dirty, hell of a lot of sendings off. My question to you would be, not about me, but about the portrayal of certain players that you will see in a certain light being in Spain, and then you will spend a lot of time all over the world, but in England, and you will see them seen in a very, very different light. How is Sergio Ramos seen in Spain, and how do you feel about the difference at times that he is seen when it comes to the English narrative?
Good perception. Because you're absolutely right. There's different ways of seeing it.
Liverpool fans in particular, I think, are
Liverpool fans in
particular. Yeah.
No, but generally, you have to go again. Bigger picture. Bigger picture. What is the way to portray football here through the media? Controversy and personalities. Lately, a little bit more tactics and other layers that go into it. But certainly, controversy and personality. And of course, he filled both gaps. He has the personality. He was a rival. He was controversial because of those things he did. He is a superb footballer.
Yeah. A goal scorer, isn't he? A natural goal scorer.
He's a goal scorer. Could be amazing. A number 9. Could have made a career as a number 9. Perhaps his ego is a little bit too big and not always well advised. I mean, to have is it an Amazon, a series or whatever it is that he's doing? I never watched, but why, Sergio?
No, I didn't watch that.
What was the need for that? But in any case, he saw himself. It happens with many players. They see being a player at some point in their careers as a limiting thing or as not enough. Gerard Piqué is another one, of course, who is a businessman and does so many other things. And Sergio Ramos has been looking outside and buys art and has got horses and a lot of other things that he does. Football play is not enough for him now. But as a football player, is he? Put it a different way. Would you want him in your team?
Yeah.
And who wouldn't?
No.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, you're right.
That kind of guy.
And yes, so decorated as well. The amount that he's won, like I say, in the goals that he's scored. It says here 469 games for Real Madrid, 72 goals, 23 goals for Spain in 180 games. I mean, it's a glittering career that he had. I was just interested because I'm intrigued by that journalist side of you, because often I'm finding it myself where, you need to talk about things, so you need to have an opinion on things, so you need to see what the story is. And so when you say their personalities and controversy, do you think that is the sort of bedrock of your career and the stories that you're looking to, with a sprinkling, I guess, of insight?
Not me. I was describing British journalism, sports journalism generally, and I do insist it's been, for the last 10 years, perhaps 5 years for sure, there is another type of journalism out there. But that's what defines people. So I know, I don't know, managers that are friends of mine or players, and they've been approached to do books, and they come back to me and says, well, what do you think? Should I? And said, remember, personality, controversy. That's what they will look for it, both in the book and then when they get stuff out of it. If you're willing to go through that, go for it. But if not, be careful, because that they will simplify your story based on those two things. Yep. In fact, my take on things, it's in the books. I'm fascinated by the psychology behind an elite player. It's so weird to be an elite at anything.
Yeah,
it's such a different way of thinking about life and having to deal with life in so many different ways. So fascinated about that. Fascinated about storytelling. If I had to describe myself as something, I'm a storyteller. That's what I am. And I've been given the opportunity to tell stories on television, radio, or podcast, or YouTube channel, or books. So that would be the part that interests me the most.
I think what's great is I found it myself. I never fitted into this sort of YouTube world where it was shouty. I wasn't very good at that. I was a lot more sort of curious, and I'd prefer to ask a question than provide an answer, really. So I think you're right. In the last few years, my channel has done quite well, and it's kind of weirdly because of that. And it was something that I sort of strayed away from because I thought people wanted something else, but actually they want to dive into the grey. They want that nuance, and they want different angles as well. And
James, be Tommy and Connor.
Be yourself. That's it. Well, look, John, it's a great link into your centre back in terms of a manager that you know, in terms of books, bit of controversy there as well. Mauricio Pochettino, I thought he might make it in there somewhere. Talk to me about your relationship with him. Is that based on your career as a journalist, or how did it come about?
Because I'm interested about another side of football, and because being a coach, for instance, you get to see football in a different way, and I end up asking the different questions. That gets quickly identified by people. Unai Emery calls me a manager's journalist or manager's writer. So instead of going for the story, I go for the person. And in the case of managers and coaches, again, I'm fascinated about leadership and other things that they like to share. So there was that connection straight away from Pochettino, but I'm an Espanyol fan. I watched him from the stands, Pochettino with his long hair and being captain of Espanyol, winning as one of the cups. And generally, I admired him. And then when he became a coach, I always think if there is people that either people don't know much about, but they are curious, or I find them fascinating, I go into it as soon as I can. And when he first got his coaching badges, I said, Mauricio, we need to talk. I need to know what you're doing, what you were thinking, what you want to be, what you want to do. And straight away, again, as I say, we connected. He did the first interview in English for me back at the days when I was in Sky. He's improved his English a bit.
Took his time, didn't he? He said, I'll talk to you when I'm ready with my English. And there was a lot of rumours about his English is actually a lot better than he was letting off, to give him that little bit of space. A bit like Bielsa. I imagine Bielsa's, is Bielsa's English okay? Is it? Do you know anything on terrible.
That? No, he hasn't got English. He hasn't got his English.
Oh, right.
No. Surrounded by Spanish coaches, doesn't need to. And he maintains the distance with the players, doesn't need to.
And, the media as well.
It was Roy Hodgson who told Pochettino, you're doing well when he was at Southampton. You're doing well by not talking to the media. You create a wall, a difference, a separation, which will be useful to you. Right. But at Spurs, by contract, he had to speak English. So we grew from that. And so it's a long-term relationship. And it got to a point when I started doing things at Spurs that it was suggested to me by the publishers. I've always published in Orion first and in English. The question was, who do we do next? And we done Ronaldo previously, and then before Messi, before Pep, and before that Liverpool and Benitez. Who do we do? And I had him so close that I didn't see it. But he's a Spurs fan, and he was 2.5 years into the job, and he's like, Pochettino, I'm in love with Pochettino and what he does. I said, I'm in love as well, and I miss him because he's not at Espanyol anymore. Let's do him. All right. So I rang him and I said, Mauricio, should we do a book? And I don't know. And Karina, his wife, was shouting in the background, let's do it. Tell him yes.
Yeah, well.
My wife says yes, so we should do it. They readers of my Messi book and my Pep book, so I thought, okay. And it was such a great experience doing that book with him, because he's so naive at certain things, but wants to be naive. He doesn't want to know how everything in the world works. So what's
he naive on in particular?
Well, I said to him, I want to be at the training ground every Monday. Okay. And I want to talk to you every Monday. Yeah, okay. I want to talk to all the players. Okay. You have to get me Daniel Levy. Yeah, let's do that. And then I will do because after I got so much information and so much stuff from a whole year working with him and his coaching staff and his family and the players, blah, blah, said, I'm going to do a diary of the season. And it's not you writing it, it's me with your voice. You never did this diary, but we're going to do this because it will allow me to tell your story and the story of the season and your way of thinking. Okay. So everything I asked, I got. And then interestingly enough, at the end, I think I can tell this story now. He was reading it on his way to pre-season at the end of that season we wrote about. And one of the directors of Spurs was, what is it you're reading? Oh, yeah, we're doing a book, which was not official. And I said, Mauricio, how did you? No, didn't need to mention it to the club. I said, can I read it? This director says. So Mauricio said, yeah, of course. No, Mauricio, you gave me the book. No, you shouldn't have done that. And exactly as I felt, it happened. They came back with a book, 28 pages with a big red cross. No. And by the way, he's mentioned Alex Ferguson 28 times, maximum of 3 in the book.
And when people do that, when people take away, I've had it with interviews, with edits, when they take out bits, they take out the best bits. they don't go, oh, this bit's a bit boring, I think you can tighten this up. They take out the best bits. That is devastating.
They do. That is devastating. So, a test of our friendship. What happens then? I said, Mauricio, you have to back me up. It's 2 years of our lives, and you have to back me up. Mm-hmm. So he did. He went to the club and says, we touch not one comma, which he hadn't done anyway. So there's the story about Kyle Walker. There's a lot of stories that then made the press, and because there was a bit of a mystery about him, and the timing was right, and Spurs were doing well, we became a bestseller. We sold 24,000 copies the first week. We were in the Sunday Times best-selling list, which means that I can call myself, and you haven't done it yet, but I always got to be called the best-selling author. Because one week we were top 10 of the Sunday Times.
Wow, Sunday Times bestseller, Guillem Balague. With a question I've always thought, when you have those relationships, then you create the book, and then, as you say, it gets distilled down to certain elements, certain lines, certain headlines that will provide clicks. Does that test your friendship? Was he naive in that sense, in terms of the fact that he didn't realise what would come out of it and the furore that would come with it?
Yeah, he wasn't aware that this could happen, but his motto is let things flow. Let things flow. Wow. So it's like, Mauri, you realize that this could let things flow. So when we presented the book in Spanish, we invited media, and we got about 10 representatives of media there. But then that same week, Real Madrid were choosing who the manager was going to be, and he was interviewed for the job. And everybody knew about it. He was in all the covers of the newspapers. So on the Wednesday, we're going to present the book, and those 10 journalists becomes 100. and I said to him, look, I'll take the flag. If you want, I cancel this. I go in front of everyone, say, sorry, Mauricio Pochettino cannot come because he's decided about his future. Let things flow. So we went in and presented the book, which again became a bit of a bestseller in Spain, thanks to all the timing of it. But yeah, that's his philosophy. So naive is a way of saying it. It just is not scared and likes letting things flow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's good. You've got to let things sort of flow past you, haven't you? Otherwise, you'll hold on to that stuff and it can weigh you down. Next up, let's go with your next two, because both are players that people won't know about. So I'd love to know why you chose those two players.
Right. One is Canito. Canito, you know what? We were talking about different type of personalities. Canito was a player of Espanyol and Barcelona in the 80s, who is also son of emigrants that came to Barcelona and lived outside Barcelona. A couple of places where all the emigrants moved to, Cornellà, Hospitalet. He was from that peripheria, and his dad died young, and his mom gave him up for adoption. He got involved in he was a little thief as a kid, and he didn't have the best foundation as a person, but he had the biggest heart. So as an Espanyol fan, centre back, he had, big body, big personality as well. I like that. But then I get to know a little bit what he was doing behind the scenes, because he didn't appreciate money. He will always ask to get wages paid in small coins and small notes. So when he will go out of training and a kid will ask him for a signature, he'll give him the signature, and in exchange, he'll give him a 50% as note. He shared his money that way.
Wow.
There was a restaurant in which if you said, I'm friends of Canito, they gave you a meal for free. And once a month, he will come and pay the bill. He was an outstanding guy. So
wow.
lovely guy. And he signed for Barcelona. He was actually our centre-back, right back, centre midfield, and centre forward. He played everywhere. And he was playing, he signed for Barcelona, obviously more money, etc. And Espanyol were struggling and were battling not to get relegated. And in stadiums, you get, or used to get in the screens, the results from all the games, the goals that were coming in. And he had the Barcelona shirt at the Camp Nou, was playing Athletic Club Bilbao, I think. And Espanyol needed to win that game. And halfway through the Barcelona game, Espanyol scores. And he celebrated with the Barcelona shirt at the Camp Nou. He celebrated like he just scored himself.
Amazing.
So that kind of guy. Now, because he didn't have the strong foundations to be a strong person, he got the wrong kind of people around him, and he became a heroin addict.
Wow.
He already took drugs as a player and died at 44. Okay. So somebody that, and because he was, when I was growing up, one of those players that had such a big personality, I want to be him. And all of a sudden, not much later than that, he died. So one of the early impacts of death in my life, somebody that's gone forever. It's just hard to assume when he's never really affected you closely.
It's amazing that, isn't it? The sort of, as a youngster, they're just a footballer. That's it. And they go off the TV screen once you turn it off, and that's all you need to know about them. And then as you get older, and I guess the way the world's moved forward, you know so much more about these people. You know, people like, for me, like Gaza, people like Ray Wilkins. So when I first started watching football, I think Ray Wilkins was 37 or something, playing for QPR, and was amazing. And obviously he had his problems with alcohol, and when he passed away, I remember feeling a different. I was like, no, like that can't be. So it's amazing how poignant those things can be, especially when it's something like that, like heroin. That you know, for it to be so sad and to be so tragic for someone who clearly had a good heart.
Yeah, almost. Remember, see if you agree with me. We as football fans stopped growing at 12. We're 12-year-olds. We see life black and white. We see, you know, every defeat is the worst defeat. Every victory is the biggest victory. So, but we see ourselves growing and having grey hair and whatever, and try to behave a little bit better in the stadiums. But deep down, I see it all the time.
Yeah.
12. So of course, a 12-year-old, when something gets taken out of your life, it's a player. Like Canito, like Ray Wilkins, lovely guy as well. I got to know him through working in Sky. It kind of hits you very hard.
Yeah. Let's keep moving forward then to someone who. So I was going to ask you this question. So when I look at when you search different players, what happens sometimes? It's very sad. Is when someone who was a player, you search them and it says manager because it shows that like they've got that little bit older. But it then made me think. I was looking at your next pick. And talking about him as a player, then him as a manager. For you, in terms of your timeline, when would you say you were just a fan, and when would you say you moved into that era of being a journalist?
I've never been in love with football in the way that most of you are. Never. Football came to me. I didn't go to football. I was a journalist. I wrote about cultural things. I lived the first years I lived in England. It was thanks to me working for a tabloid magazine, writing about Camilla and Prince Charles and Diana and all that. That was to obviously to earn money, not
for your love of Camilla,
not for my love of it. But it was in '96 European Championships. There was a radio show, a very famous radio show that gets done at midnight. They did it in London. My brother said, "Oh, let's go and see them." We went to see them, and there was the editor of a magazine now. Doesn't exist, Don Ballon, and he was a friend of mine at university. He says, well, we don't have a correspondent in the UK, you want to do it? Fine, yeah, I will take any kind of job at that time. And I started doing football. A year later, I rang Sky and I said, oh, I see you doing Spanish football. I'd like to do a report on you because I work for Don Ballon. I said, oh, come over. and they put me in front of the camera, and I was in a show, and it was like
Revista. Was it that Revista La Liga?
Not yet.
That?
It was just we called it Spanish football, and then I don't know what else we called it, and eventually we called it Revista. But yeah, it was like, we're going to do a highlight show. Do you want to do it? It's like, yeah, okay. But it wasn't my passion. I don't think football is my passion. It's never been. But football has allowed me.
So why own a football club?
Because it's not about football. It's not about football at all. Quite clearly, the fact that every weekend and midweeks as well, you get judged 2 or 3 times when the senior women's played. We got 2 teams when the under-23s play, when the first team play. The result is a judgment on what you're doing, and that is adrenaline driven, and that you get hooked to that. But behind every result, every lineup, every decision, there is so much work, thinking. There's so much leadership. There is so much vision. There's so much stuff that everybody helps with. That's what I'm attracted to have an idea and develop it and help people get better and give people opportunities. And now Middlesbrough United is a open door to anyone who is foreigner, for instance, or who is not taken by other clubs, or female coaches. So that's what it has to be. I hate Brexit and everything what Brexit represents. And if I can, by this tiny little club, if I can change the dynamic a little bit and people can feel at home, even though they're not locals, if you like, great, good job. That's what has me in a football club.
So we were talking about that manager or player become manager, Marcelino, another player who I'm looking at his sort of numbers and stats. It's nothing too impressive. So, but it's about personalities, isn't it?
It's not that Marcelino.
Oh, it's not that Marcelino. Oh.
No, it's Marcelino Elena, former Newcastle player and Mallorca player, and there is a reason why I picked him. You asked me to have an 11 that is emotional.
Yeah, because the email I've got, it says Marcelino brackets Garcia Toral. No, not him.
No.
Right,
that was added by somebody along the way. One
love
of the
it.
Intermediates.
Yeah, silly. Right, I think I know why you've chosen him then. But yeah, tell me.
Marcelino was so badly treated at Newcastle, so much so that he needed psychological help for many years, and that was by coaches at the club, the manager, by fans, by the media. They picked him up as the villain. You always have to have a villain. It was Sergio Ramos. Now it's Simeone. At that time in Newcastle, with the passion that drives fans, they all directed the negativity and the toxicity towards Marcelino. And I wanted to give him a little homage because I know he had a really, really difficult time and deserved to be in this 11.
Because I thought you would have brought him up, because didn't he do Revista La Liga with you?
He's done a few things
that, right? So you were able to chat to him through that. So when did he go to Newcastle? I'm just trying to find him now.
So he was Mallorca played the Cup Winners' Cup final in Birmingham, and against Aston Villa, was it? And Mallorca lost, but he was the centre back at the time. He was a Spanish international. He was heading towards and in the lineup regularly under Camacho, I think he was, or Antonio Camacho. And he was signed by Newcastle, by Ruud Gullit. But Ruud Gullit was sacked after 3 months. And everybody that Ruud Gullit signed was badly treated by the club.
Right.
And that at that time, of course, Ruud Gullit wanted to make it more continental, European. As he was sacked, the place became more English. And the people that were Ruud Gullit's people, they just, as I said, they had a very rough treatment.
Yeah, because I think it was Stuart Pearce. For people like Stuart Pearce, the English lot, it was kind of the other way around with Ruud Gullit. But you're right. When he's 122 games for Mallorca and then goes to Newcastle United, is there for 4 years and plays 17 games when you've got 5 caps for Spain in the year
and
before.
Yet I think he's got the record of games played with the under-23, so the reserve side.
Right.
So he was fit, but wasn't allowed to play. Imagine they take that away from you. Imagine.
That's such a great example. There's so many players like that. I think often we go, well, he's not done well there, so that's the end of it. And actually, there's so many variables that can affect someone, and just because they're not starting doesn't mean they're great.
In his case, he got injured on his finger, hand finger, and it took 12 months for him to recover. The ins and outs of it, it's basically what happened there. And it was like he wasn't allowed to play, even though he wanted to. Of course, that gets explained to the media and that to the fans, that the man doesn't want to play, that he's a mercenary, that a lot of things, which means that he eventually, for a year, he hardly left home. He was spit in the streets by fans. He was insulted. And nobody deserves that.
No,
nobody deserves that.
It's just a game.
This is a Spanish international.
Yeah.
Not a bad player. Not a bad player. But I think in that period, what we're talking about, 90s?
99 to 2003.
Okay, in the 90s, English football had to evolve, and hadn't evolved at that time. So let's not look at that era with too much melancholy, because there was a lot of, and this is one of many stories I know of that period, of people that were not from England that were treated really badly.
Yeah, we had Nader Manua on the Dream Teams, and he was talking about that with QPR. He was saying that actually, when it started going wrong at QPR, people kind of went, "Well, it's the foreign lads not giving everything," and Nader was like, "That's nonsense. It was the opposite." Yeah. Let's move into midfield, because the people will have watched it so far and going, "Okay, come on, where are these all stars?" And now we're going to talk about them. Talk me through that midfield three, actually, because you've got four in there, but I think. Can we somewhat put them together and we can kind of make our way through? Talk me through your midfield.
Well, Busquets, Xavi, Iniesta. Busquets, Xavi, Iniesta, and as you said, there's another guy who played for Espanyol, Lauritsen. But Busquets, Xavi, Iniesta is what. Perhaps it was right to say that I'm not in love with football. Maybe we should say there are moments where my relationship with football reached heights I never imagined they could reach. Of love for what I was seeing, of love of the people that were involved, of that changed my perception of what I thought I knew about football, that challenged a lot of views, not mine, but the whole world. And that was a combination of Luis Aragonés that we mentioned already, who started it, Pep Guardiola as well, Vicente Del Bosque. Those were the leaders that put this midfield together. Del Bosque added Xavi, Alonso. But anyway, with those three, we started seeing that there were a different way of winning at a time where Mourinho had told us, and that brand of football, that the midfielders had to be really tall and really physical and really strong, and they had to have high tempo and a lot of other things. So it was for a country like Spain, which generally we are at the bottom of the list in Europe for many, many things, to be able to say, no, but there is another way, but not being able to show it or to win through it, it would have been a bit of, like always, you say there is another way, but you cannot.
Nearly.
Nearly, man. And this was the confirmation that us, who are not the tallest or the strongest or the most physical able, actually can win things too. And winning is important because it changes perceptions. We knew that you can win in different ways, but we needed that moment that represents the faces of which is Xavi, Busquets, and Iniesta. But also, we started to see, especially in England, I would say, but then that was taken to the continent, to Spain as well. Players became big, and there was brands around it, and you couldn't get too close to them, and because there were PR people and there were layers, and around that time that was happening in England with the golden generation.
Fair enough.
At that time there were these three guys that we will go out for a meal or talk, or they explained what they were doing and why they were doing it, and there was a lot of things that as I said made me love the game again. Felt that behind the decisions, behind the passes, behind the goals, behind the wins, there were people, and they allowed me to be part of that conversation. So I'll always be eternally grateful to the three of them and many others like him.
On the pitch, you talk about that way of playing, and it's something I hadn't really thought about as much until I pair them or put them in a three. You can't play and have that kind of success and dominance if you don't have all of them, really, because often we focus on other superstars, Neymar, Suarez, Messi, but you don't do it without that midfield. And all three of them, what I love, and I love a midfielder, and I love a midfielder with no pace, and I love a midfielder with some vision, because it makes you...
Is that you?
That's me, yeah. Because that's me when I was 12, yeah. Well, and to this day. And I think that's what allows these kind of players to allow you to dream. And in very little moments, that's what I love about midfielders as well, is it doesn't have to be a goal or an assist. It's just a moment of gorgeousness that Xavi consistently offered. Busquets offers in a very sort of slightly different way. And then Iniesta again. Talk to me about these three players, I guess, if somehow, well, how you would like to describe them in terms of what you love about them on the pitch. But then I'd love to know, what are they like in terms of their personalities? Because I don't know much about them from that point of view.
Okay, fair enough. It goes together. To be a good player, to be that kind of player in which they are cogs in a whole machine, you need to have a certain personality, otherwise it doesn't work. Ibrahimovic didn't work for obvious reasons in Pep Guardiola's team. So Busquets, humble, not hurt by the fact that he's never entered the top 5 list players of the year, as midfielders of the year. No, never. And he is amazing what he does on the pitch. But it tells much more about us and how little we know of football, that we haven't appreciated him more. I mean, that's. Yeah. But he's been humble, but he has to be, because he has a very little role, which is absolutely huge. The little role of making sure that, you know, he pushes the defensive line high up and be the first one in pressure, make sure that the player doesn't pass. If you lose the ball, the player cannot pass, and make sure that once you got it straight away, you are a forward and you have to think like a forward. And then this is so important, so difficult to do, so consistently. And he's Iniesta. I've got a great relationship with Andres, and it goes through because of his empathy. He's a lovely guy who has gone through so much, including depression. And now he's openly talking about it. It's one of the things that we did with Marcelino as well. Spoke to Marcelino, to Toni Soldevilla, former Espanyol player, and to Iniesta about mental health. It's the first show that has been done in Spain about mental health. It's more common here, and I follow that lead. Fantastic. But it has to be told that the people that struggle, unable to control that struggle. And that's what Iniesta went through just before the World Cup 2010, and few other times in his life. So knowing that, and obviously we couldn't report it, but I knew that he was taking medicines for it and etc., and still managed to live in the elite and consistently perform and have moments that are historic, like that goal against Chelsea in the semi-finals of the Champions League, and of course the World Cup winning goal, all that. And that is him, that he got to those points, and that photo, it's him. We're so happy, you won't believe. Anybody that's close to that era and to those players, we're so happy that it's him doing that. And yet again, generous. He could have scored more goals, I guess. Should have. But instead he preferred to give it away, have the pass. Always intervening in the most difficult part of the pitch, which is next to the box. Just in that moment where you don't have time to turn, where you have to think very quickly, and always doing very well. And Xavi, well, you see him, is a football fanatic, obsessive of football, did so much with so little. He's tiny, he's not muscle, but he's intelligent. Yeah. And because he's been able to develop that in the right place as well, he needs a lot of thinking. Again, he needs the humility to realize that sometimes you don't know enough, so you have to keep learning. And he kept learning, still learning. And those, as you can see, they are good people, the three of them. You get good people, committed people, intelligent people, you get the best midfield in history.
He's just starting out his journey with Barcelona, has had an incredible impact already. Do you see, and this might be really, really lazy, so that's kind of why I'm asking, the sort of comparisons with him and Guardiola as a manager, after obviously having that, I guess, synergy as players. Do you see a lot of Pep Guardiola's style and personality in Xavi now, or what are the differences? Is that lazy?
Pep has changed football. To do that, you have to be the first and imagine what's in front of you. Xavi is trying to do what Pep did in 2010 and 2010, not 2014 at Bayern, not 2022 at City, right? Because Pep has evolved, and Xavi still with Barcelona 2010. He will evolve with the team. He'll be given time, but now they beat Real Madrid at Santiago Bernabéu 4-0, and they think, that's it, we got it now. we know what to do. And since then, it's been a collapse because he hasn't got the players, and he needs to find out what are the best players for what he's trying to do. It's only been months at it. Pep Guardiola went through a whole year of traveling around, trying to challenge himself and learn. He also was thinking as a player, as a manager, as a coach, when he went to Italy, when he tried to go to England, when he went to Mexico. So his education has been a much, much longer education. And I think that's so important. Gary Neville, I remember, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, we met on Thursday for Football Beyond Borders that I'm patron of, a charity. Yep. We met for a chat with public, and he was saying, too many foreign coaches in England, and we have to give the opportunity to young coaches in England, blah, blah. 3 days later, he becomes the Valencia manager. And I'm thinking, Gary, no, it wasn't so much about the foreign thing. It was more like, did you prepare for this? And he admitted that, admitted months later, that 10 days into the job, it's like, I was not prepared. At the same time that he got that job, he was telling me that it's taken him 5 years to learn about architecture and design of cities, because he was working in Manchester to do things for the city. 5 years learning about architecture allows you to take good decisions. In football is exactly the same. And totally. Pep has gone through all that. And I think Xavi needs a little bit more learning, but he's going to do it on the job.
Yeah, because I see that when I talk about managers now, say Arteta, for example, and people kind of going after him. For me, when I look at a manager now, when you say the amount of diligent, you have to be a scholar. You have to be a scholar to be a good manager, and actually you have to evolve, and it's not going to be linear. So the only thing I can trust when I'm critiquing or deciding if I believe a manager's got something or not is, are they smart? Are they aware? Are they looking to develop? Eddie Howe's another great example of that at Newcastle. And that is the modern manager now. You can't just be, you can't just have gravitas and have played for someone and think that's going to get you over the line. It's just not going to work,
James, as fans, we have not got a clue. We do not know what's happening.
Yeah.
We do not know what's happening. We don't know what's happening. We just don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
We know 5% of what's happening.
Oh, if that. And that's the thing as well. Yeah, and that's before you get on a pitch, which is littered with variables that then gets defined by a scoreline at the end of it. So if you think of the before all of that, it's absolutely outrageous.
Let me say very, very quickly, you mentioned Arteta. People haven't got any idea how deep is the personality, the thinking, the leadership, the vision, the empathy, the knowledge that Arteta has. They've got no idea. And maybe when this comes out, they will have a better idea, because I'm writing about it for the BBC webpage, because they've got no idea. And he is the engine of that club now, really? Which is a bit worrying, because I think, it could burn him out, because he really is putting the whole thing on his shoulders. But he knows where he's going, and he won't stop until he's surrounded by people that think exactly like him. And that means squad, coaching staff, which he's got already, but squad certainly.
Yeah, he's been so cutthroat. A friend of mine worked at Arsenal, and when Arteta arrived, and had been there for a couple of other managers as well. But when Arteta arrived, what he found amazing was that, kind of by accident, he was in one room, and Arteta sort of came in and wanted to talk to the office, wanted to talk to the staff, and did this whole big speech. And my friend wasn't actually in his seat in his office, right? So he's in this one room, and Arteta comes in, talks for 15 minutes about passion and process and what he's going to do, and everyone's really, really energized. And then my friend realizes, I've got to go back to my desk now. He goes back to his desk, and Arteta walks in that office and does a similar but not the same speech to everyone. And so you're right, in terms of being talismanic and being that leader and putting it on your shoulders, which is what Pep does, what Klopp does. Arteta is, everyone gets burdened to a point. Pep Guardiola certainly has felt that burnout at times, but he's not burdened by the weight of that. He's energized by it, isn't he?
He's a ball of energy. He's a ball of energy. Yeah. But yeah, energy is limited. I think he the sooner he finds surroundings that think like him, people that think like him, and can can drive the whole thing with him, the better, because
then
quite
you can
clearly,
move together.
Then they can all move together. I'm very, very much looking forward. Whatever, if they go to Europe, great. If they to Champions League, but even if they don't, the progression is so obvious what's happened in the last 2 years that I hope that fans are curious enough to find out about it, and they will find out that 5% maybe. But do ask questions, as you just done. You know already of his magnet-like quality and attraction and leadership, and others will find out more things. It's a very I think he doesn't sell himself that well. So others will have to do it for him.
I think it's. Do you know the film Castaway, where Tom Hanks is trying to get back, and he knows he has to get through these like 5 or 6 huge waves to get to sort of the proper ocean, and he can kind of be on his way. I feel like Arteta's kind of got through those waves now, and especially if they can get in the Champions League. I guess the only one problem will be and it's something Andre Villas-Boas said with Marseille, is they did so well, got into the Champions League, and then floundered in the Champions League, and he was saying that you've basically got to overachieve to then be called rubbish. I'm obviously paraphrasing there. So that could be the next challenge for him, is that obviously there's that rise in expectations. But I think he's it clearly has great leadership skills and intelligence as well. But anyway, sorry, we're going off the beaten track here. Just quickly about John Mikkelsen Lauridsen, who's a player that, again, I didn't know, but I wonder if is it down to is part of it down to that fact that, a bit like Nkono, a sort of foreigner in a team that did well for you? Is that part of it? Yeah.
Lauridsen was so elegant with the ball. He seemed to be floating when he ran, and always had things that we didn't have at the time. Spanish football was all about, we call it the fury, the energy, the even the tackling, it was like very bad tackling. And Lauridsen just added something completely different. He's blonde and just looks, again, completely different at a time when there were only 2 foreigners, and our 2 foreigners were Nkono and Lauridsen, so deserves to be in the team. So,
and part of that kind of generation of, the likes of the Laudrups and those kind of players had a similar vibe, did he?
Yes, centre midfielder who liked to drive with the ball, but liked to apply the pause at a time where, as I said, those things were completely new to us, and was one of the 2 players that Javier Clemente, the Espanyol manager, who was the manager of Espanyol in the UEFA Cup final in '88, left out of the squad.
Oh, for the final?
For the final.
No.
Yes.
I guess less subs then, right? Is that
no? It's just no. He just left him and Valverde, who became the Espanyol and Athletic Club and Barcelona manager, and also one of our best players. So when we went 3-0, because obviously he wanted to close shop and finish with 0-0, but when we conceded the 3rd goal, looks at the bench and there was nobody of quality there to bring on. But looks up and they were there.
He's there in the stands, crying his eyes out.
Yes.
Okay, so we got our 4-4-2 here.
As you can hear, it still hurts me.
Yes, well, no, I get it. These things live forever. I know. I'm going through a QPR capitulation at the moment. We're supposed to be in the playoffs this year, but so be it. So into your front 2, and as we alluded at the start, there's someone massively missing.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Do you want to talk about that first, or do you want to finish on that? I'll leave it up to you.
Let's talk about it first.
Okay.
So I get it out of my head.
So tell us the player that you've not put in this team somehow.
Messi's not in it.
Lionel Messi's not in there. Why is that?
Messi's not in it. I don't know. We went through the emotional. I mean, it's such a... With him, I grew professionally, quite clearly. The only authorized biography that's out there in the market is the one that we did. I'm now still I'm writing a column for the Parisien, the newspaper in France, about him. Basically, he's ever present. I just got a call from the BBC. They're preparing a documentary. We are meeting at 5:00 today to talk about who should be in that documentary, apart from me, of course. Who then also want me to be the voice of the podcast of that documentary. It's everywhere in my life. It's the book that's been translated to more languages than any other, including the Pep Guardiola one.
So essentially, he's the air you breathe, isn't he? So you can't see him. That's so when you're picking your team, he bypassed your thinking. Amazing stuff. I mean, we've got to talk about him because obviously such a huge part of your career in his career as well, obviously, and how that's changed. And I would imagine that's often, like you say, with the book and things like that. You're talking about elite players, and that really struck a chord with me when we were talking about Xavi and Busquets and those guys and their sort of sensibilities, maybe. I'd love to know how you feel being an elite sportsman, or the greatest, in my opinion, how that has affected Messi, the person. How do you think that he's just always been elite and so has ridden this wave, or do you think that has affected his personality and the other sides of him? I recently had a son 13 days ago, and everyone talks to me about, is he gonna play for QPR? Is he gonna be this? Is he gonna be that? And when I think about it, I'm slightly wary about my son being an elite sportsman, because it's the sacrifices and the pressure and the fame and all those things, if it were ever to be, despite it being what a lot of football fans think when they have their son or daughter. So with you being so aligned with Lionel Messi, has his personality been affected, do you think, by the fame that he's had throughout his life?
First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
You're going through the biggest life-changing thing ever, I imagine.
You're telling me.
I hope you're sleeping well.
No.
I thought you wouldn't. But it's their personality that takes them to be what they are. So without that personality, you don't get it. You won't get there. The journey to be an elite, precisely in the Messi biography, I wanted to explore it. So I ended up with 10 things that make you elite or make you the best in the world, and only Tiger Woods and I don't know and Michael Jordan and Cristiano and Messi have got that, or Pep Guardiola. The rest of us don't have half of that, but because they're either born with it or they have the right education, they have the right context, the right club, a lot of things that have to become the
right coach,
the perfect storm.
The
right coach, a lot of things. Be lucky that you don't get the injury at 16 that transform your perception of football. A lot of things that have happened in the case of Messi. Obviously, he's had to adapt, and I've presented about 8 commercial events with him throughout the years, and we've sold all kinds of things together.
Happy days.
And I've seen the evolution of somebody who wanted to be protected by loads of people, but his people. To have big walls with the world, to actually somebody that's been little bit by little been opened up, but still needing to be kind of having somebody that can be a protection if need be, and he's still got that. He's got his own assistant who goes with him everywhere, but he needs that. But he has been all his life a rock falling down a mountain. So you better get out of the way if you don't want to be with him, or if you want to join him, just get into the rock and fall down with him. He's nothing much has changed. What has happened, and goes back to your life-changing moment, is that when he started having kids, the fit was not a little death. That was the main change. That of course, when he was 21 and would lose a game or had a problem, he wouldn't talk to Pep Guardiola for 3 or 4 days. And it's like he does that to his mom. He used to tell me, Pep. So of course he's going to do it with me. And now he takes football victories and defeats in a different way, but he's still super competitive. Disappointed that this year we haven't been able to see his best, but there are reasons for it. He had a bad COVID. He got injured twice. He had to travel to Argentina with the national side. There has been 4 different ways of thinking about that PSG team. The manager and Mbappe and Neymar and Messi, they kind of think differently about what has to happen. And putting that together, which I think they did for 150 minutes against Real Madrid, has been a big challenge for Pochettino and for Leo. So, all right, he's had this year now in Paris, and let's see in his second and possibly last year at the highest level what he does next season.
Does he? Sorry, because I could just, obviously you are the person to talk about with Messi, and I know he's not in your team, but I've just got so many questions. Do you think he trusts? You'd say that protection. So the 2 other things I'm interested in is, one is, do you think he sort of is wary of the world, or does he sort of trust the world, or is he kind of like? And also, the other question I would have for you is, can you tell me something about his personality that I won't know? Because it does feel quite, timid or closed off at times.
About the world, players tend to make the world much, 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 much smaller to survive. Because if they had to worry about everything that happens, their mind will explode. They have so many, they are in his case, his family didn't depend on him ever. Although his brother has been looking after him in a way. But there are many players in which, they are the head of the family at 15. Maradona was a clear case, and Cristiano Ronaldo
Neymar
as well.
Yeah.
So, and Neymar. So imagine if you had to deal also with whatever is out there. So his world, it's shaped to be in Argentina all the time. So he watches Argentinian football, watches Argentinian television, goes to Argentinian restaurants, goes to Argentinian supermarkets in the area in Barcelona where he lived, in Castelldefels. I don't know how he sorted it out in Paris, because it's a bit harder there, but I'm sure he's found the perfect Argentinian restaurant. So that's how he shaped his world. And in terms of knowing things that you wouldn't know, he's got a very dry sense of humor. So intelligent sense of humor. So he will laugh at things very easily, like a little kid, but all of a sudden he just come out with a line that's like, wow. Do you know that kind of person that
cuts through?
It's not
cut through.
It's a cut through, witty, intelligent, sometimes hard on people, but in a kind of in a funny way, and you don't expect it, because what you see is a different person. All of a sudden, boom, he's got that. I don't know. I mean, it's a little bit what you see. He's shy, not always comfortable in public, but he's growing. He's growing as well to do that, and he deals with kids marvelously. He's great with kids. But he probably feels he's still one of them.
yeah, and it's interesting that he has to make that world so small. It makes total sense, because there's just so much attention. He's the greatest. Okay, let's talk about your two then. We got that out of the way. Talk me through both of these. I think Fernando Torres is your first striker. Let's finish with him. Raúl Tamudo, I did some sort of digging on him, and I love this pick. I love this pick so much. It makes complete sense, and exactly why. So you guys won't know this, but I asked Guillem to come on, and I think the communication wasn't totally there in terms of like what team, because you came back with like an amazing World 11, which would be in a great video on another day.
Premier League La Liga. It was a Premier League La Liga.
Oh, okay, lovely. And it's a cracking team, really, really good team. But yeah, I was like, oh no, you've got so many stories. It can't have Ruben Dias in this team. You can't have understood what I meant. So when I saw this and then looked up Raúl Tamudo, I was like, yes, tell the world about Raúl Tamudo, because this is a person that everyone should look up after this. I love this pick. Go for it.
Well, Raúl is he fast? No. Is he skillful? No. Can he head the ball? Not really. Has he got a left foot? No. Can he shoot from outside the box? No way. And yet, he's the best goal scorer in Catalonia, in the history of Catalonia, best goal scorer of Espanyol, one of the best goal scorers in La Liga. And I love that. I love, for instance, Raúl out of all the legends of Spain, because also that he was a 7 out of 10 at everything, but he wasn't a 10 out of 10 at anything. Raúl Tamudo is exactly the same. And he had this knack that legends have of appearing at the right time.
Amazing.
So he saved us, and we didn't get relegated when he first came into the first team for a goal that he scored against Hercules. He scored in the cup final, and he did one historic goal that did not take a title for us, but became a legendary, iconic moment. So we were playing Barcelona at the Camp Nou. Barcelona were winning, and Real Madrid were playing Zaragoza, I think.
Yes.
Out of those games, last game of the season, basically one of the two, but Barcelona and Real Madrid will win the league. Barcelona were ahead, were about to win the league, until Tamudo scored the 2-2, which is now called Tamudazo. When a Tamudo hurts you, it's a Tamudazo. And then stops Barcelona winning the league, which obviously has been celebrated many times, every year, in fact, by Espanyol fans. I wrote the first illustrated official history of Football Club Barcelona. And somehow, the Tamudazo goes into the story as well.
You forgot it? Or you put it in,
No,
right?
I put it in.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I put it in.
Right.
I put it in. So I don't I don't know what Barcelona fans think when they read that there was that particular moment that gets mentioned in a book that is mostly photographs, but still managed to put it in. But, don't ask an Espanyol fan to do the official history of Barcelona then. Ask somebody else.
Yeah, totally. Because I saw a quote, I can't find the quote here, but and my editor will have to bleep this, but a journalist said when he scored that goal against Barcelona to stop Barcelona winning the title, they say, well, that was the greatest we've ever had. I can't remember the name of the guys. I was like, well, okay. Who I'm talking about.
I'll leave it out.
Leave it there.
But yeah, it was. Remember, Espanyol hardly wins anything, so a whole season has to be lifted somehow. And there was one.
But he also won 2 Copa del Reys, and actually that cheekiness, the goal I scored on the second minute in 2 different cup finals, and the one against Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid got relegated that season, but was still expected to beat Espanyol in the Copa del Rey. Go and find the goal. It is so. It's pickpocketing. The goalkeeper bounces the ball once, thinks the world's fine, bounces the ball again for a second time, and Tamudo from nowhere. And I watched the footage of it, and in the first shot you don't see it because they've just gone to a wide or something like that. But then when it comes back and shows the replays, he's just nodded it as if the ball's about to just drop back into his hands. It's just I can't even describe it.
The story's better. Change history. Because FIFA decided to ban those goals after that. That was the last goal that was scored like that, right? Wow. Also, it was scored against a goalkeeper that was a goalkeeper of Espanyol, Tony Jimenez, who ended up crying in the changing room, who was commiserated by Pochettino, Espanyol captain, after the final, out of which grew an admiration and love that has continued. Tony is the goalkeeper coach of Pochettino and has been in his career as a manager, and ended up with another iconic moment where Tony couldn't stop the tears. And Tony's such a lovely guy, by the way, but couldn't stop the tears when the king gave him the medal of runners-up in that cup, and I think ended up hugging him. The king hugging a goalkeeper, all sweaty and everything.
Wow.
So yeah, that's what Tamudo did.
That's it. I mean, I love that pick, and the fact that you had, like you say, again, those players that don't have all the characteristics that you think you need, but can still make that difference. I think it gives us all a little bit of hope. One player who had some of the assets is your final pick, Fernando Torres. Talk to me about Fernando Torres, and is this for what he did in a Spain shirt more than anything else?
No, it's for what he did for my career. But of course, there are some moments that have to be picked. The final against Germany in 2008, and the goal, and the fact that he was so close and still is closely linked emotionally to one club, to Atletico Madrid, but still managed to go out and succeed at all that in Liverpool. How he looked after me in that period, how I knew everything that was going on in this world, and that helped, of course, to tell stories like breaking in on Twitter and Revista de la Liga at the same time that he was going to go to Chelsea and getting death threats through it and getting the first four. And that was the first sign of, this is 2009 or something like that.
Yeah.
First sign of trolling, but also of how much it can affect you personally, having breaking a story, to be treated like that. I didn't understand it because all I had in the previous years through my work in the Sky and the books was just plaudits, and people look after me, and they wanted photographs and autographs, and all of a sudden they wanted to kill me. Wow. It was so hard to go through that, and it took me years to recover from it because I don't have thick skin. I don't know how to develop thick skin, so I had to get used to change my mind to think, no, these guys, because it's never a woman or hardly ever, don't count. To actually say that enough times until you believe it, it takes years. Now I'm fine. And recently I had something happen with Everton fans that we can go through if you want, if we had the time. But it was well. So I defended Rafa Benitez because I saw, for many things. One, I believe in his work. By the way, you see what his work was, what it was trying to hold together. You can see that at Everton. Two, I knew that he was going through difficulties, having physical difficulties as well. 3, I saw that some of the treatment that he was receiving from media and from fans, his own fans, was xenophobic, racist, and last time I looked, that's illegal. So I decided to back him up, and I've got no problem doing that. Out of which, even though I've lived in Liverpool for 10 years, and Liverpool is my favorite place in the world, and I know a lot of Evertonians, shockingly, I received the most toxic, how can we put it, wave of indignation that I did not expect, because I know Liverpool and I know Evertonians. Yeah. I did not expect any of that. I expected discussion and I expected trolling, but that was of a level of toxicity that never in 30 years in the profession I experienced. So, out of which, they decided to have a campaign against my Maradona book, which, by the way, has been nominated to Book of the Year by the Football Writers Association. I'm only saying that because what they did was go to Amazon and put 1 star and kill the book through Amazon. If it was my first book, they may have killed my career as a writer, because Amazon is a reference for readers and for. But they did that, and of course it went from like 4.7 out of 5 to 2.5 or whatever it is now. And you cannot get it out. You cannot take it out. And a lot of people laugh and they thought it was a funny thing. And I'm thinking, if you had a restaurant and I got my 1.5 million followers to actually kill your restaurant, you wouldn't find it so funny. But at the same time, I tried to understand why they were doing that. So 2 or 3 days of being upset. Why are they like that? Why are people like that? And so many people like that. I found out a lot about Evertonians. I spoke to a lot of them. We did a podcast with some of them. So, as always in my life and the way I look at life, something very, very positive came out of it. I understand a lot of what they're going through. And I wish they had seen the Rafa that I'm seeing, because I think they will be in a different position right now. But that's another matter.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because I think, first of all, there isn't accountability a lot of the time, and that allows people just to say whatever they want and think it doesn't matter. It does matter. Secondly, actually, I always say this as well, is that there's the tweet, and then there's the person behind the tweet, and then there's the feelings behind that person, and that's it. But it doesn't make it easier to sort of, especially when, it's just a game and it's just an opinion, and it's not like you're saying anything. Racist or James, any of those things. It's just outrageous.
They don't know anything. It goes back to where we were talking earlier, and I know this hurts, and it probably will bring another way of trolling. You just don't know anything.
Yeah.
Certainly not enough. But I would say nothing. You just don't know nothing. You've been told, and at Everton it happens very often, you've been told by a bunch of people with a bunch of connections, a side of the story. I was telling you the other side of the story. You didn't want to listen, which is fine. It's football. It's emotional. There is all that. But it'd be good that we got, and this goes beyond football, of course, that you listen to those that think differently to you.
Yeah, massively. Absolutely.
Do that.
Take a second.
Because that's how you grow. That's how you grow as a person.
And importantly, take a breath. Like, I think that's what happens with a lot of people, that, because it is at your fingertips. It's not just talking out your mouth. You can talk with your fingertips now. People just go brrr and think it's okay, and it's not. What I would say to you is that, the fact that your book has done as well as it has done, I think says, well, the reason for that is integrity, and that integrity is not built over one day or 1 year. It's built over years and years. So for them to do something like that, and for you to have the success, that shows that you've got, however many years behind you. So congratulations on that, because I think that's even more important than the book doing well. Finish up with Torres then. Was it the being in Liverpool and the connection you had with him with your career then? Finish that off.
I got to know him when he was at Atletico Madrid. I knew that he was trying to make it into England. We spoke a lot about what it meant being a player in England, and not just on the pitch, but off the pitch as well. And I learned a lot through him as well, because we had a good relationship. We would go for meals when he was in London or when I went to Madrid. And we knew each other's family, that kind of thing. And then one day I went to the training ground, and I went to see Frank Lampard, who, by the way, I wasn't having a go at Frank Lampard earlier. What I was saying is that the situation of Everton requires hands that have been in similar positions. I hope Frank Lampard keeps Everton up, because I think he's going to have a career as a manager in which he will learn through this as well. But anyway, I went to see Frank, and then what happens, you go to the canteen And of course, some see you, especially English people that have been in England for a while, see you as one of them because you've been on television. And even though we haven't met, I'm one of them. So I went and sat on a table, and I was surrounded by those guys that watch Revista La Liga, players like Frank. But Fernando Torres came in and he saw it differently. He saw it like, no, this is my world. This is not your world, right? And that's how in Spain that it tends to happen between players and journalists generally. So he started shouting, journalist, terrorist. And I'm like,
what?
I went for a meal with you last week. What are you talking about? but I learned that there are rules and there are borders that if you cross it, it has consequences, even though at the other side it may be your friend. So one of many lessons that I learned from Fernando Torres, who's now coaching, and I'm glad that he is.
Yes, he's stacked as well, isn't he? He's got on the weight.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So that is your team. Guillem, it's been an absolute joy to chat to you. Guillem is a La Liga TV expert pundit. So make sure you go check out La Liga TV for all your Spanish La Liga needs. Very, very important. It's La Liga is reported as the most popular foreign league in the UK. We love it. We love you, Guillem, as well. Thank you so much for having a chat with me. I really, really appreciate it. And hopefully we can meet in person one day. That would be wonderful. Well done. Thank you. It's a great team.
That'd be great. James, that'd be great. And you're driving this very, very well. I felt very, very comfortable. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Right, guys, check out all the other episodes. I hope you enjoyed this one. Hit the like button if you did enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next one.